Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Education is the bedrock of a country's development, and like our quote of the day by Martin Luther King, the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of education. And as Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. It helps people become better citizens, get a better paid job, shows the difference between the good and the bad, shows us the importance of hard work, and at the same time helps us grow and develop. Many are of the opinion that if Nigeria will solve the apparent problems in her education sector, the solution have to be largely unconventional, tailored to specific problems, and with the use of technology. The question tonight is, how do we begin to restructure our education system towards nation building? Please let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation via social media using the hashtag WayShow and tweet at us at WayShowAfrica1 or send an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Now, before I introduce our guests, very quickly, I know you two have the lawyer blood in you, so don't overtalk. 1 minute each. What do you think can be done to restructure education in order to build Nigeria?
Inject more funds, then training and retraining of teachers. Because the quality of teachers depend on the quality, will actually impact on the quality of the students. So you cannot ignore the teachers and focus on the students and facilities if you don't focus on the teachers themselves. So I think that's the starting point.
So I agree with that, and I think generally, in addition to that, there's also a need to bring our curriculum in line with technological development and also look at like practical skills that students need to have in addition to the academic background that we already have. Because a lot of our institutions are very solid when it comes to like the theory, but then the practice, that's where the challenge is.
I think we're making it less than 1 minute. I'm proud. So our guest today is Dr. Tunji Adegbesan, who is the founder and CEO of Gidi Mobile Limited. He's globally respected as one of Africa's top scholars of competitive strategy, as well as one of her leading experts on the mobile telecommunications industry. A recipient of multiple awards, he has been invited to speak at knowledge events in more than 20 countries across 4 continents. He is a startup mentor for the Google for Startup Accelerator as well as for the Founder Institute. He is a philosopher, a student of culture and geopolitics, has native fluency in English and Spanish, and basic literacy in French, Yoruba, and Catalan. Hi, Dr. Adegbesan.
Hello.
You should start. You should speak some Catalan. Some Catalan.
When you were
So
reading out his profile,
I had to
taking a
summarize
second
that
look
profile.
like,
His profile
okay, all
is-
the way, all in one person. Okay.
You need to see the bigger profile.
Wow, that's impressive.
imagine.
Yeah.
That was just grammar. It's paperwork.
Okay. So I know you have worked in the education sector for a while, and you've also tried to bring in technology into this space. Not tried, you have brought in technology into this space. When you heard that you'll be speaking on restructuring education towards nation building, what was it that came to mind?
What came to mind? So firstly, thanks for having me. Real pleasure being here. And well, to be honest, what came to mind was, wow, where will we start? Because I think education is a technical issue. Many people tend to not realize that. So it's a large faculty in the university with lots of departments and lots of areas. So there's a technical aspect to education, there's a systemic aspect to education, and then so fixing it is complicated because there are many parts and everybody will point at one part and you really can't not do all parts, So what I was thinking about was, where will we zero in? Basically, what major issues will we focus on? What will be the key takeaways? Because there are many aspects to it that we can talk about. So I would just follow your lead, and also focus on areas where you want us to focus more. But it's a large thing. I like to think of education in terms of 4 things typically. So the institutions, the educators, the learners, and then sociocultural context. So like 4 areas where I put everything. Then you have the sector itself, which is more at a national level. And about each of these 4 plus 1, there are many things one can actually say.
I think I agree with him about it being such a large. I think the topic is so large. I don't even know where to start from. So, where would you start from? Like, if you were to fix the education problem in Nigeria, where would you start from?
Okay, so I've given quite a bit of thought to that because I have friends that work in education, and we actually have an education collaborative for innovation and that kind of thing. And to be honest, I think we haven't done enough coordinative work. In general, in Nigeria, I tend to prefer that, let me say, let's say sometimes I feel the government should give us space to innovate. Let me not say leave us alone. Okay. But there's some times that you need an overarching kind of framework to guide everybody. And I'll give you an example. There's a difference between an accounting company, an accountant, an auditor, and the accounting profession. Okay. So if you think of one firm, an accounting firm, their objective is to do a good job for their clients, get paid, pay their salaries. But you need the audit and accounting profession to ensure that investors as a whole, the country as a whole, when you hear a company say something, you can be sure that what they're saying is actually true because it's been audited. So for you to have that sort of ecosystemic action, you will say all accounting firms do this. And then there's another space where accounting firms on their own choose what to do. So education requires a plan. We don't have a thorough national education policy. And I say thorough because I typically say we don't have. But my friends in ministry in Abuja will beg to differ. And there's a document we have, it's like a 20-something page document that is due for renewal. You need to look at India's national education policy. It's like a 200 or 300 page thing. And there you have to say, as a nation, what's our view of 2035? So we think 2035 is going to be skills-driven, or 2035 is going to be AI, or is going to be no jobs, or is going to be nuclear holocaust, whatever you think about it. Then you now say, okay, we have children who are going to go through a system for 15 years, so that those 2035 outputs, you start training them in 2020. So you now say, okay, given my view of 2035, these are the knowledge, skills, and attitudes they should pick up along the way. Therefore, at tertiary, do this. At national, or forget about tertiary, or have 2 tertiaries or 6 tertiaries. So we end up with an argument, should you have a polytechnic or a university? What does it really matter? It just depends on your view of the future. Is a polytechnic what you want for it? Yes, no. Is a university what you want for it? Yes, no. There are polytechnics in the UK up until about 92 or 95. They scrapped all of them, changed them to universities. In Greece, their engineering universities are polytechnics. In Turkey, the key thing for me is not the how, is what is, you need to know where you want to go. Then you need to start charting a course. And we've not had that discussion of where, and by the way, job creation is part of that. I said, what's the world going to be in 2035? Therefore, so there is that sort of coordinative part of the endeavor we've not done. And until we do that, you have each institution trying to optimize locally for parents and customers. And it's like each accounting firm doing its own job, but you don't have this systemic confidence in the investment sector because all accounting firms as a whole are going in a certain direction.
So if as a carry-on question, what do you think is responsible for that? Why don't we have, because we have a federal ministry of education, we have state ministry of education, and even at the local government level, we have local government, policy on education. So what is the problem? Because I am aware that education is on the concurrent list. So the federal government can legislate on it and the state government can legislate on it. Why is everybody looking towards the federal government for something as simple as education?
So, with this kind of answer, you have to answer very tactically. Because the answer pertains to actors that are currently available. The way it's set up, obviously, as you know, they're concurrent lists. And in general, secondary and below is more the domain of the states, okay? And then, which is the bulk of education, by the way. Yeah. But think about, let me use a good example. So the telecoms GSM revolution we had in 99, 2000, 2001. Under IBB, we had a national telecommunications policy promulgated in 93 or 94. And then that was some work that was saying, okay, these are the types, this is where we're going to go. And then because you had a policy, someone could now say, okay, let me now license on this or license on that. In governance, you normally have policy preceding action. So policy requires convening, you know. So it's very difficult to talk about this without sounding critical of the government. It's not my objective, really. My interest is in things getting done. But usually policy is driven federally, because when you have something that affects everybody, because you know you are going to have not just only the Ministry of Education, you're going to have jobs. You're going to say, example, India. They're trying to create 400 million jobs that are in the skills-based sector. So they have at a ministerial level, they actually have a minister of HR, basically. And then you now have to say, okay, we feel that agriculture currently has 100 million jobs and can grow to 130. So you need the Ministry of Agriculture talking to you as well. They now say rail, we feel so there is a convening power you need at the center to pull the people you need together to say, where do we want the educational sector to go in? And then you need those multiple voices. So if you don't see it as an important thing, you keep doing particular measures. Fund this one, buy a chair, buy a shoe, pay this teacher, train the other person. But all those things won't come together. It's a problem. Education has so many pieces, and you can keep doing disparate things without them all coming together. So I've been campaigning for a while and it's hard work. So to come up with a national policy of education, so India, there's now, I think this was a 10-year review. It's some work countries do it. You simply have to sit down. It will take you a year or two with brain power, and you sit down and do it. But education is not a very easy thing for political incentive, because education is not like a road. When you just build the road, you finish it in a year or two. You commission it in your own tenure. If you do something very deep in education, we'll see it 9 years from now. You won't really be there to claim it.
Let's come back to the policy
Unless
of
it's
education.
yeah.
Let's come back to the policy of education and what we have now, what is attainable. For me, it was very interesting to watch the drama that played out during COVID-19. I think I had a conversation with you as well during that period. And we could see some parts of the government. At first, everybody was saying, oh, we couldn't go digital. And then when the government said, oh, let's go digital, ASU said, oh, we cannot go digital. You know, it was really interesting to watch, yeah. So, not to take us back to what happened then, now that we are here now, and I think Nigeria is almost at the post-COVID era, really, if you want to be very honest with ourselves. How would you advise people in the system at the moment to make the best out of it, also using technological equipment that are available, whether from the parent side, from the student side, or from even I like that Lami talked about the crop of teachers we have as well. How can we begin to get quality at least? I know we don't have people that are looking at 35 years or 15 years from now, but we are here, we are now, want to be better. What would your advice be?
Okay. Two areas of action in general: access and quality. So if you just focus on access and quality, you have a lot of work to do. When the administration prior to this one was building universities, right, there was a time some of my friends and I were like, why don't you fix the current ones and blah, 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 until you look into the numbers. And you see that, so about 1.6, 1.7 million people will start taking JAMB right now. And in general, 1 in 5 can fit in university. So of all the people in SS3, even if everybody gets 400 over 400, only 500,000 can fit, right? So you can see that definitely there are people trying to get in. So it's not only a quality issue, because there's actually some people who don't fit. So you look at those two boxes. For the access, you start at primary. We have approximately 30 million children of primary school age out of school. So that's an access issue that is a stream of work. And say, okay, what can I do about that one? You probably need, I think tech can play a role there, because it's going to be very difficult to quadruple or to double the classroom space. So you can do some holding measures about taking the classroom to them. You know, you could say, okay, I used to know these figures by heart, but we've spent several trillion. So the vast majority of capital formation in education is on buildings, it's on brick and mortar and furniture. So you could also say, okay, instead of spending all that money on furniture, what of on devices? but then you have to design it well and think about it. So that's an area of action. It's okay, this 13 million, how can we move the needle? I say, okay, from 13 million, let's move to, let's say, 7 million. You can't go from 13 million to 0, right? So that's on the access front. For the secondary school level, you have 10 million people in secondary school and 20 million in primary. So already, they cannot fit. So from the access point of view, you need more secondary school seats. And so you can think about how we're going to expand, how we're going to double this one in the next 6 years. Because this 20 million needs to go ahead, you know. And we have UBE, which says everybody has to do JS3. They don't fit. So access is a whole stream of work that does have infrastructure around it, but I suggest that we have to think beyond the infrastructure in terms of ways to do it, where tech can come in. Then quality has those 4 areas I told you, which is institutions, the educators, the learners, and sociocultural context. So for institutions, tech can help institutions be better run, right? So you go to a school that is a very expensive school that maybe costs $300,000-400,000 a term or something like that, and is very well run, right? And in fact, I know of some schools that may even outsource their management to a UK company or something like that. But you can get a school management software that costs 200 naira per student per term and replicates 60% of that British headmaster based on technology and process. So you can actually improve institutional quality using technology, you know. And so we could go on. So I think that my answer would be, apart from the overarching, bring everything together, you have areas to start working on in terms of access and quality at each of the 3 levels that you could jump into.
I want to disagree with him.
Okay.
We'll come back for you to disagree with him.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
go on a very quick break and we'll carry on the conversation.